Chapter 35. What Remains. The silence after the performance was not the quarantine's oppressive stillness. It was the silence of a house after a long, raucous, and necessary party, a space emptied of tumult, filled with the lingering echoes and the slow, steady rhythm of cleanup. The quiet things were gone. The pattern's presence had not withdrawn, it had unraveled, its purpose dissolved in the acid bath of their irreducible humanity. The fungal growths remained, but they were inert now, just biological matter, a strange, silent garden in the ducts, a monument to a forgotten war. In the days and cycles that followed, Wayfinder Outpost underwent a subtle, profound metamorphosis. It was not a sudden revolution, but a quiet reorganization, like sediment settling into a new, more stable formation after an earthquake. The first change was physical. The sealed bulkhead between Sector Bravo and Charlie remained open. Not as a symbolic gesture, but for practical airflow and because the repair teams, now blended units of former doers and Karr's disciplined technicians, needed access to the full station to assess the damage and the opportunities. The work was no longer a performance, but it was conducted with a new ethic. Hayes and Revna found themselves co-managing a project to reroute power from the now overflowing geothermal tap. The bearing repair had been a flawless, if chaotically achieved, success, to revitalize a long-dormant secondary hydroponics bay. They argued fiercely, but the arguments were about conduit gauge and nutrient ratios, not philosophies of survival. The conflict had been refined into collaboration. The children's collapsed tower of junk was not cleared away immediately. It became a playscape, a evolving monument to creative waste. Elara and Marek, now joined by others from both factions, would spend hours there, rebuilding, reimagining. It was from this pile that the boy, Marek, salvaged a broken lens from an optical scope. He spent a week polishing it, and with Lynn's help, he mounted it in a service hatch viewport, creating a tiny, distorting telescope that showed the stars as smears of wild, beautiful light. It was useless for navigation. It was a new way to see. Jax awoke. He was different. The pattern's architecture was gone, but the pathways it had burned, and the humanity that had fought within them, had left him uniquely configured. He was neither the cold analyst nor the traumatized victim. He was a synthesist. He would sit for hours, listening to the station's sounds, the hum of the tap, the whisper of air, the distant clatter of work, and he would sketch. His drawings were not schematics, nor were they abstract art. They were flowcharts of feeling, diagrams that connected the vibration of pump A7 to the faint tension in Lyra's shoulders, the color of the algae growth under the new lights to the contented sigh of old Marek. He was mapping the emotional ecosystem of their home. He called it psychodynamic cartography. It was his way of making peace with the ghost in his machine, of using its tools for a human purpose. Leah stopped humming altogether. Her voice, so long an instrument of resonance, first for the sphere, then for grief, then for the symphony, was her own again. It was a quiet, slightly raspy voice. She asked for, and was given, a small corner near the ghost tree. She started a spoken-word archive. She would sit with people, one at a time, and ask them a single question. What is one thing you know to be true, right now? She would record their answer, no matter how trivial or profound. The taste of the recycled protein is faintly of almonds today, a doer said. I miss the color blue, not the sky. A specific ceramic bowl my mother had, said a woman from Karr's faction. I am afraid of the quiet, but I like the quiet, said Elara. Leah collected these truths, these tiny, present tense anchors of being. She was building a library of the now, and Rook? The rememberer's burden was lifted. The truth of Earth was no longer a secret. It was a shared, stark foundation. The sensorium, that excruciatingly expanded perception, did not vanish, but it softened. It was no longer a violent invasion of others' states. It became a gentle awareness, like feeling the weather on your skin. He could sense the general mood, the shifting pressures of the group, but the agonizing specificity was gone. The bridge had served its purpose. He was no longer a conduit between humanity and a silent threat. He was just a man, scarred, weary, and strangely light. He found he had a new role, not as a leader or a prophet, but as a curator. People would bring him things. A strangely shaped piece of metal from the salvage piles, a drawing from a child, a problem that wasn't technical but social. They would ask, "What do we do with this?" He had no grand answers, but he had developed an instinct for the question that unlocked meaning. "What does it remind you of?" he might ask about the metal. "What would make the problem more interesting?" He might ask about the dispute. He was helping them translate the artifacts of survival into the language of a life. Commander Elara Vance and Soren Karr met daily. Their meetings were no longer held in the command nook or in sealed rooms. They happened wherever the work was, leaning over a conduit junction, reviewing plant growth and hydroponics, walking the perimeter corridors. They were no longer rival commanders of factions. They were the de facto, co-equal administrators of a tiny, fragile, post-apocalyptic city-state. Vance handled morale, community, the why. Karr handled logistics, systems, the how. They clashed constantly, but the clashes were productive, creative. They had become the two necessary hemispheres of a single brain, and Wayfinder was the body they were learning to steer.
AI analysis. The human group has entered a state of post-traumatic integration. The defeat of the external simplifying threat has allowed internal social structures to reform not around ideological purity or survival imperative, but around demonstrated utility and emergent roles. Leadership has become situational and distributed. Meaning is derived from contribution to the immediate, shared reality rather than from grand narratives of past or future. This is a stable, adaptive, and highly resilient configuration for a closed system.
One cycle, Vance called a gathering, not of the whole outpost, but of what she called the Weavers: Rook, Jax, Leah, Lynn, Hayes, Revna, Karr, and herself. They met in the common area, near the ghost tree and the children's ever-changing junk sculpture. "We're not just surviving anymore," Vance began, her hands resting on the scarred table. "We're persisting, and persistence requires a different kind of effort. It requires deciding what we persist as." Karr nodded. "We have a functional baseline. Resources are stable, if barely. The crisis is dormant. The next phase is about sustainability and growth. But not quantitative growth. Qualitative." "What does that mean?" Hayes asked. "It means deciding what kind of people we want to be in this place," Rook said. "We defended our right to be messy. Now we have to live with the mess. We have to give it a shape we can live inside." Leah spoke up, her voice soft but clear. "My archive, the truths people tell me. They are small, but together they are a constitution. They say, we are people who notice the taste of almonds, who miss a blue bowl, who are afraid of and love the quiet. This is who lives here." Jax tapped one of his psychodynamic maps. "The systems are linked. The well-being of Pump A7 affects Goran's sleep quality, which affects his attention during watch, which affects group security. We are one organism. Our rules, our culture, must acknowledge that linkage." And so, they began to draft the Articles of Now. It was not a legal document in any traditional sense. It was a set of acknowledgments and principles, written on salvaged metal plates with a laser etcher. Article 1. The past is a memory. The future is a hypothesis. Only the now is mandatory. Article 2. All work must serve two masters, survival and meaning. If it serves only one, it must be re-examined. Article 3. The right to be inefficient is sacred. The responsibility to not waste the necessary is equally sacred. Article 4. Every voice is a data point. No data point is supreme. Article 5. The quiet is not an enemy. It is a space. Fill it wisely. They etched the articles onto a central bulkhead in the common area. People would stop and read them, sometimes arguing, sometimes nodding. They became a touchstone, months blurred. The rhythm of the outpost changed. The frantic, desperate edge of emergency faded, replaced by the deep, sometimes dull, sometimes joyful rhythm of building a life with no hope of rescue, no promise of a better tomorrow, but with the fierce certainty of a shared today. Rook found himself one evening at the distorted lens viewport with Elara Vance. Neptune hung in the black, its blue a cold, distant echo of the lost ceramic bowl. "Do you think they're really all gone?" Vance asked, her voice quiet. Earth, Mars, everyone. Rook didn't have the old psychic certainty anymore. He had only his reason. Probably. The Aegis crypt wasn't given to uncertainty, but probability isn't truth. And truth is what we make here. We'll never know for sure. No, he agreed. And that's the final, terrible freedom. We are unverifiable. Our story is the only one being told, so we have to tell it well. He took the folded page of Whitman from his pocket, the one with the barbaric yawp. He didn't read it. He held it for a moment, then offered it to Vance. "What's this?" she asked. "A relic, but it's done its job. I don't need to carry it anymore." He smiled, a tired, real smile. "You can make it into a flower for the tree, or use it to start a fire. It's just paper now." She took it, her fingers brushing his. It was a simple touch, laden with everything they had endured. There was no grand romance, no promised future. There was only the shared, immense fact of their presence, side by side, looking at a distorted starscape. In the corridor behind them, they could hear the sounds of the city of now. Jax explaining a cartographic link between dinner's menu and the mood in the workshop. Leah asking a passing technician for her truth of the moment. The children laughing by their junk sculpture, the solid, reliable hum of the geothermal tap. They had not conquered the universe. They had not been saved. They had not even secured a future. But they had secured a present. And in the endless, silent, indifferent cosmos, for this one small, leaking, noisy, vibrant outpost of life, that was a victory so complete it needed no other name. It was simply what remained. And it was enough.